You may be asking why she is running. Well, she is a young and naive journalist working undercover as a prostitute to uncover human trafficking in Lagos, and what she discovers is a world of exploited women and merciless violence. Let's go back some few minutes before this scene. It's a beautiful night, and our protagonist, Oloture, but undercover as A, she walks past a pimp, Chooks and his girl Blessing, into a club. Chooks is a washed-up old-school pimp who keeps a close eye on Blessing, primarily because she wants to leave him, but an occasional slap could easily reset her brain. However, Chooks' presence may be detrimental to the other girls, as Vanessa, a veteran prostitute, warns him. Chooks, however, she will get to know isn't her problem, as A appeals to men looking for something new, resulting in a hostile treatment from other girls, but they barely have anything to worry about as A isn't planning on sleeping with any of the men, when she could just escape from them using a toilet window. She makes for an escape, bringing us to the beginning of the recap. The next morning, she returned home to a rundown whorehouse with several occupants and a strict landlady. Word of her previous night's activities has already spread throughout the apartments, with the other ladies accusing her of being pretentious and fake. Linda, her roommate and a veteran prostitute, provides emotional support and cares for her wounds. She then tricked Linda into telling her about her plans to relocate to Europe with her sister, and she expresses her desire to do the same. The plans are supposed to be top secret because the smuggler requires a total of $1,200, which Linda has been paying in installments, and the smuggler may get angry at her for divulging any information, but she promised to talk to her about A's inclusion. The next evening, while the girls were out, a client specifically requests for A
not to use and play with him like this, that one not okay. If not blow job like this, fuck it.
After A informs him of the services she provides and her prices, they leave. He turns out to be her colleague and boyfriend, Emeka, performing a routine check. He compliments her acting but warns her not to get caught up in it. When she returns, she meets Blessing, who just had a normal day of ass whooping from Chooks, and advises her to leave him, which she will later regret. The next day, Linda goes to make one of the installmental payments to the smuggler, Oloture, who owns a fabric shop in the market. Linda inquires of the feasibility of her 17-year-old virgin sister joining the trip. Oloture affirms, as being a virgin is an advantage. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Linda, A followed her and got caught. This infuriates Oloture, who thinks she is a spy. After learning of her intentions to join the trip, Oloture refused and sent them away. After which Linda expresses her anger towards A for not allowing her handle things. A still tailed Oloture, as she seemed to be having issues with someone over the phone about a shortage in the number of girls, after which, she informs Emeka of her findings. The following scene gives us a glimpse into the character's true personality. As she visits the Oriental-style home her mother lives in, it is clear that she had a loving upbringing, and thus, contributed to her ability to empathize with the street girls, and her decision of wanting to tell their stories. When she returned to the whorehouse, she expresses her regret for the previous day by giving Linda a homemade dish made by her mother, while pretending to have purchased it from a street vendor. Linda accepts her apology before informing her that Madame Oloture had heard her plea, and have invited her and a few other girls to a party with prominent politicians the next evening. Later, as A is coming home from work, Chooks, who enjoys harassing lone girls, corners her and threatened her for telling Blessing to leave him and mentioned his doubts about her. This is a distinctive feature of the street because it is divided into layers, and the highly placed find it appropriate to dominate those further down the food chain. Oloture knew this too well, so when she picked the girls up the following evening, she demands they do whatever the wealthy politicians wanted from them. At the party, A and Oloture formally acquaint themselves. She accepts A to join the trip on the condition that she prove herself by sleeping with the host of the party, Chief Phillips, a gentle and soft-spoken man, but A understands the different parts of prey and a predator play in the ecosystem, so she spills the drinks he offers her, and when she claimed to have a stomach ache and wanting to leave, he gives her pain relievers, and if you think it isn't pain relievers, you are right, he drugged her and raped her. This isn't his first rodeo, as he could be persistent with unsuspecting girls, imploring different tactics, before drugging and molesting them. When Oloture comes to get her, she didn't show any concern, either because she didn't know what A just went through or she chose to ignore. With the drugs still in her system, she couldn't walk and had to be assisted by the girls. This single act plunged her into a spiral of depression. No amount of water could wash away the ugliness and dirt she felt, and the need to be heard pushed her to find salvation in church. Her radio silence for the last 24 hours raised concerns for Emeka, who tells his superior, but he is told not to act on his fears as he risks blowing her cover. Sometime later, Oloture gives A her share from that night and tells her of an empty spot for the Europe trip and how unlike other girls she will be a forza speciale, a term used for premium girls. When Oloture was about leaving, Chooks accosted her singing his favorite song of Leave My Girl Alone.
Leave my babe. You hear me so?
Of course Oloture has nothing to do with Blessing, and he cowardly stepped back when he is made to face his match, and when A asked him for his help to punish Philip, he cowered even more when he realized it's someone with more power than him. Speaking of more power, Oloture meets with her boss, Tony. He voices his displeasure of the inconsistency in the number of girls she provided, letting her know there are higher-ups who would take his neck for discrepancies like this, and he wouldn't hesitate to take hers. She assures him of A's willingness to pay and shows him a picture of her. He brands her as troublesome, as pretty girls are always troublesome, his words. Some days had passed and A is back to the street, although not her usual self. Emeka calls for her again, and she reluctantly follows him, all the while Linda watches with suspicion. In the drive, he could feel her off mood. When he asked about the party, she tells him it's just a rich people's party, and they do what they do best, refusing to tell him about her rape. When they get off the car, he threatened to pull her out. She makes him aware she has made contact with the trafficker and the trip to Europe. Knowing that's what they always wanted, he calms down. But the story is now personal for A, and however deep the story goes, she is willing to go also. So, the next day, she pays Oloture the fee and she is informed they will depart the next day. Meanwhile, Beauty, Linda's younger and more innocent sister from the village, arrives in Lagos by bus after Linda called her mother to request her. Both the fact that Linda is planning to take Beauty to Europe through Madame Oloture, and that she is working as a prostitute to send money home, are unknown to Linda's mother. It's the day of departure. A fails to tell Emeka of it but rather gives him her report and promise to get back with him when it's all over. He leans in for a kiss. I guess not. The girls are then taken by bus while Oloture drives closely behind. They are taken to a house at the outskirt of Lagos where they will be given orientation and teachings in preparation for their lives in Europe. Here the women meet violent, verbal, and aggressive smugglers who tell them the rules of the place, one of them being no phones. They are then searched and every electronic devices on them are confiscated. A hides hers, and after searching thoroughly and finding nothing, they let her go. They are then shared into 3 groups with the sisters being separated. Emeka reads her report in the meantime and learns about the rape and the perpetrator. Outraged, he calls her but gets her voicemail. He visits the whorehouse, where the landlady informs him that A has moved. He then goes outside to look for her, mistaking some other women for her until he runs into Vanessa. She throws curses at A for being away and still making things difficult for her. When she tells him of A's relocation to Italy, he is left aghast. A, who had sneaked into the bathroom with her phone, then calls Emeka. After describing her location to him, he promised to come get her. They shared their I love yous, or he mostly did.
I love you.
I have to go.
You're not the girl I used to know. You're a shadow.
The next day, they are taught how to stand and walk eloquently, while the men try to teach the rest of the girls how to twerk properly. Beauty, who has now come to the realization that they are being bred for prostitution, and being a novice, she gives a terrible performance.
You dey feel am? I feel I'm gonna die. So on a hard win.
When it gets to Linda, she is praised for her expertise, but she is more worried of her sister finding out this way. The girls are then taken to a forest where a priest performs diabolic rituals on them, forcing them to take an oath not to go against their bosses when brought to Europe, while lying in a coffin. This is another method of instilling fear in them while providing assurance to the smugglers. Meanwhile, Emeka leaves the police station after learning that the special unit will be unavailable until tomorrow. He then goes to Philip's office, where he later finds him in the restroom. He informs Philip of his profession and his knowledge of his evil deeds, before giving him a piece of his fist and threatening to return for him and his friends. When they return, Oloture issues them fake passports, and they are compelled to sign a fictitious contract that binds them to their new smugglers. Being intelligent, A tries to read the contract, but Madame Oloture deliberately coerces her into signing without asking any questions. The passports have different identities. A is assigned to Kenya, while Linda is assigned to South Africa. Linda then asks A for her phone, which A initially denies having, but eventually promised to leave it under Linda's pillow when she realizes she has been discovered. Linda promised to be careful, but that night, while on call with her mother, she gets caught and didn't deny being the owner of the phone. So, for breaking one of the rules, she is beheaded in front of her sister and the rest of the girls as a lesson. The fact that the smugglers are unsure of who Linda was in contact with raises concerns for them. They then interrogated and beat A and Beauty, but mostly A, because they were close to Linda and might know something. She refused to talk because doing so might get her killed. The police stormed the compound the next morning, but the smugglers had already fled. Even though they told Emeka to stay back, he followed them. He is alerted to the presence of a phone and a dead body near the pool. After checking and confirming that it is not Oloture, It dawns on him that she is in more trouble than they anticipated. He immediately begins driving towards the Nigeria-Benin Republic border, deciding that since the smugglers have been compromised, leaving the country is their best option. That proved to be a good guess, as they were already at the border and bribing their way through. Meanwhile, on the bus, another smuggler steps down, and A and Beauty take advantage of the opportunity to flee, but are apprehended. After telling him they needed to use the bathroom, he takes them to a spot. When he noticed they were taking too long, he went to check on them, but they had fled. He chased them down and was able to catch A and bring her back to the bus. Meanwhile, Emeka has just arrived at the border but is denied entry by military men who refuse to listen to his explanations. At that point, Beauty runs into him on her way to freedom, and he is intrigued but not curious, so he just watches her go. The film concludes with the unintentional smuggling of A, an undercover journalist. This film emphasizes the importance of knowing when to retreat. When attempting to do good, one must always be aware of the boundaries for physical and mental safety. Even for viewers who may have no prior knowledge of Nigeria, the movie's emotional appeal is evident. In order to realistically portray reality, the movie does not hold back when depicting sexual assault or shocking acts of violence. The film's central themes revolve around corruption, criminality, abject poverty, and aspirations for a better life. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to help the channel out. Drop a comment telling us what you think, with a recommendation of what you would like to see next.